Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. Happy New Year! We are officially in the year of 2023, and I'm still talking about a movie from 2022. And more specifically, Avatar: The Way of Water. This is my spoiler review for the movie. The last time I dedicated a spoiler review to a movie after doing a spoiler-free review, I think was Godzilla vs. Kong. I know I did a spoiler review for Jurassic World Dominion when it came out, but that was when it came out, and I had no patience for just spoiling that movie on the first go. And in my spoiler-free review for Avatar: The Way of Water, I talked about how I wasn't in love with the movie. I did like it, had a lot of issues with the film overall, but at the end of the day thought it was good but not great. It resulted in being my least favorite James Cameron movie besides Piranha 2: The Spawning, because that's the obvious Cameron movie that is the weakest. And I had wanted to try to see the movie again and update you guys on how I felt about it the second time because I wanted to see it in just a regular frame rate. So I went to Universal City Walk, saw it in IMAX 3D with the intention of seeing it at 24 frames per second all the way through because that's how I saw Avatar Remastered when that movie also had a few scenes converted to 48 frames per second. But the second the 20th Century Studios logo started moving a little faster than normal, I realized I'm watching this in a high frame rate once again. And after watching it for a second time, somehow I grew from liking the movie to loving the movie. The second time around proved to be even better than the first time. Even with the high frame rate, it didn't bother me because it was used at the appropriate times. It didn't feel out of place the second time around. I don't know what happened. I guess because I had already experienced the movie at a high frame rate, so seeing it again at that same format didn't bug me. And after finishing the movie, I realized the reason I felt a little underwhelmed after seeing it the first time was because Avatar: The Way of Water was sort of this thing of legend. In a way, the lead up to this movie kind of reminded me of the lead up to the Snyder Cut, except without all the bullying and harassment on social media. I mean that in the sense that both Avatar: The Way of Water and Zack Snyder's Justice League seem to be this thing of myth, where nobody believed it at first. Okay, I can't say nobody because anybody with a brain could tell that Avatar: The Way of Water was going to happen at some point, it was just a matter of when. Whereas with the Snyder Cut, nobody knew if that was ever going to happen, and thanks to a pandemic and HBO Max needing content, it did happen. So when the movie started, I didn't quite fully process the idea of, I am watching a new Avatar movie. It is the sequel, 13 years after the original, and I'm finally getting to see this. And I absolutely love the way the movie opens, with the Avatar theme blasting into high volume. You get to see the Hallelujah Mountains, what looks like a regrown home tree, shots of banshees flying over the Avatar landscape, the Tree of Souls that was used as the temporary home for the Omaticaya in the last movie. It was just a beautiful way to begin this movie, and you couldn't have done it in a more appropriate way. So if I can briefly just sidestep into the things I didn't like about the movie in its original run, the issues I had didn't really bother me a whole lot, but some of them included the introduction of characters like Eddie Falcone's general character in the human city that's been built. She doesn't really have that much of a role, and you can tell that she's probably going to be in future sequels, since humans are the bad guys. Hi there, it's Alexander from the editing chair. Another thing I completely forgot to mention that this movie introduces was the Amrita anti-aging liquid. It's a liquid that's found at the base of the Tulkun's brain that just stops human aging. It's basically the new unobtainium. It's introduced in one whole scene and then is forgotten about for the rest of the movie. So that kind of felt out of nowhere if we're just looking at this movie on its own, but I imagine with more sequels on the way, this will be a bigger plot point. So we'll see what happens in the future, but just wanted to mention that thing that I forgot in the original recording. I didn't mention at all the character of Spider. Jake Champion plays a kid who was born in Hell's Gate, but because kids couldn't exactly be sent back home on Earth in cryotubes, he just stayed on Pandora with the rest of the scientists and eventually became a pet to Jake and Neytiri's family, though Neytiri has a lot of reservations about Spider considering that he's not a Na'vi. Pretty much the way to look at this character is like Mowgli from the Jungle Book, where he lives among the wolf pack, but he's actually not a wolf, he's adopted. And there's a lot of decisions involving this character that are sort of questionable. It's revealed that he's the son of Colonel Miles Quaritch, which it's not really a big dun-dun-dun reveal like the reveal in The Force Awakens, where we found out that Kylo Ren is Han Solo's son, because James Cameron just went ahead and said, Spider is Quaritch's son. No build-up. I have a little bit of dialogue in the beginning that sets this up, and I'm going to cut to a shot of Quaritch's avatar form heading back to Earth. So you already know who his son is, no big reveal, no mystery box. And throughout most of the movie, Spider is with Quaritch and his team of recombatants. But the reason Spider isn't really written all that well is because he makes a lot of weird decisions. He's angry at Quaritch a lot of the time for burning down a Metcaina village, killing an Ilu, and trying to kill his adopted family, and yet he's willing to help Quaritch in terms of navigating the Pandoran landscape, taming his own Banshee or Ikran, and saving Quaritch from drowning when he's knocked unconscious by Jake during their big final battle. It's a lot of really weird decisions, especially at the end when Spider, after saving Quaritch, decides to head back with the Sullys, because it's gonna be a really interesting development when the Sullys find out that this adopted human son of theirs saved the guy that was hunting them and killed their oldest son. And considering how little Neytiri actually gives a shit about Spider, that woman's gonna gut you, Spider, so you better watch out, because if she finds out Quaritch is still alive and that you saved him, you're not gonna last very long. So there were some questionable decisions about Spider, mainly in terms of the writing. I thought Jake Champion did a good job in terms of acting, and the character's main purpose is to give Quaritch a lot more development. While most of the time I spent talking about this character has been about pointing out a lot of the flaws, it didn't bother me as much as it did the first time, because I look at him in the same way I look at some of the characters in The Last Jedi, like Vice Admiral Holdo, where both these characters are not really that strong in terms of writing, but they are important because they help with the development of another character. And it's because of Spider that Quaritch ends up being a little more sinister. He has a lot more to lose. There's a sequence in the movie where Quaritch holds Kiri hostage and is about to slit her throat. And then Neytiri comes out of nowhere, grabs Spider and says, "You cut her, I cut him. A son for a son." And Quaritch the whole time is like, "You think I care about some kid? He's not mine." And then just as Neytiri's about to stab and kill Spider, Quaritch is like, "No!" So it's clear that his time spent with Spider has kind of humanized Quaritch. I'm not going to give him a free pass because he's still very villainous and a much darker villain than he was in the first movie, but it made him a little more interesting. As for Kiri, another thing that they just kind of non-subtly hint at is that she's a virgin birth. The movie never flat out says that she's the product of a virgin birth, but considering everything that we know about this character, her being a miracle birth from Grace Augustine's avatar, the fact that she's also played by Sigourney Weaver, the fact that she connects her mind to the spirit tree to reunite with Grace in both human and avatar form, and gets no answer when she asks who my father is, it's pretty obvious. And if I'm going to play devil's advocate for what's going to happen later on, I think the reasoning is because Grace was the first human to be with Eywa. So I guess Eywa in return gave her a daughter, her avatar form a daughter, and pretty much gave this character a chance to be unbelievably strong in terms of her connection with Eywa. So I think that's ultimately the thing that's going on with Kiri. We'll see what happens in Avatar 3, but I think all the things that we know about this character and what we've seen point in that direction. Speaking of Kiri and the rest of the Sully kids, on this second time around, I actually grew to like these kids a little more, and I thought the acting was better than I remember. You have the older brother Neteyam, who often picks on his younger brother Loat, but also looks out for him. I thought it was a pretty believable brother relationship. Loat is more the focus when it comes to the Sully kids, him and Kiri. I already mentioned Kiri's involvement with this movie, but Loat bonds with this giant space whale at Tulkun named Payakan, and pretty much because both of them are looked at outcasts, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not thinking of any movies at the moment, but this is one of the first mainstream movies I've seen where you have a majority of the movie focused on the kids and the middle siblings are the main focus. Because often we joke about the middle siblings just being forgotten. I don't think I've ever seen a movie of this scale focus on the middle children. I could be wrong, and if I am, if there's any other movies out there that I'm forgetting, at least on this big a scale, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I really found myself more invested in the Sully kids the second time around, especially when we got to the death of Netaim. That was a real heart-wrenching scene, especially watching Neytiri just having to break down again, and in a more horrifying manner because she just loses it. And any parent who has to experience the death of their children, it just destroys them. But I do kind of wish Neytiri throughout the entire movie did a lot more beyond this. As for the runtime, I still felt the length, and I don't think this story really deserves to be 3 hours long, but I was never bored. I feel like if you cut out a lot of the sequences where you have the Sully kids and the Metkayina swimming through the coral reefs and Lowat and Payakan bonding together, that could have probably shortened the runtime, but those sequences are so beautiful that I honestly don't know why you would get rid of them. So a lot of the problems I have with this movie still stand, but they don't bother me as much as they did before, because now we know that this movie is a hit, and it's just constantly making money, to the point where we know all these sequels are going to happen. We don't have to worry about James Cameron creating a safety net and making Avatar 3 the final film. We're going to see a lot more of these, and I feel like by the time you finish watching this video, the movie will have made another $1 million. So my rating is actually bumped up. It's gone from good but not great and bumped up to worth seeing in your lifetime. I like it just as much as the first Avatar. I think I like it better than Titanic and True Lies. And I'm planning to see this movie a few more times before it ends its theatrical run. Hopefully I can see it at 24 frames per second, but it is good to know that the high frame rate didn't bother me the second time around. So if I see it again at a high frame rate, I won't have an issue. That's pretty much all I have to say in terms of the spoiler elements for Avatar: The Way of Water. This was supposed to come out as my last video for 2022, but a lot of work-related things got in the way, so I didn't have time to record this video until now. Before we officially move into the future, I have to do my best of and worst of lists for 2022, and those will also be the last 2 videos that I do under the name The Real Mr. Robinson. Once my best of list is done and uploaded onto YouTube, the channel name will change to Alexander Robinson. So thank you guys for watching this spoiler review for Avatar: The Way of Water. Keep your eyes open for those best and worst of lists. And now I want to know what you guys think about these spoiler elements. What were some of your favorite moments in Avatar: The Way of Water? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Go check out my Twitch channel and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.